was not even running a time. Okay.
Dropped out of high school to join the Marine, received an undergraduate degree from Harvard, a master's from Columbia, and your doctorate from the University of Chicago. All of which pales by comparison to the fact that you once tried out for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Again, I'm quoting you. I had remained a Marxist despite being at the University of Chicago, but now my experience in Washington.
I didn't figure out what happened with the caption, so I have
completely.
this phone.
Well, we already know it's not easy to
sitting here,
what did
powered down.
What did it? Oh,
perhaps I may know something soon.
Okay, so what would Tom Sowell do? One, you eliminate welfare.
He grabbed his granny's iPad.
Roll it back. Right.
He grabbed his granny's iPad.
Eliminate it. Just gone. Yeah. Colorblind policy completely. All right. What prospect for that do you see?
I just had a bowel moment too.
Well, talking to experts does make a difference. Many of the
about like
great
6 minutes
of our time have been committed by experts. You may remember FDR's brain trust, which according to later studies prolonged the depression by several years. The whiz kids in the Pentagon under McNamara, who managed to mess up the Vietnam War. You can remember an impressive list of things and disasters brought about by people with very high IQ.
All right. Mini version of the American Dream, from Jim Crow to Harlem to all these books. So, I've read what Ta-Nehisi Coates makes of this country. What do you make of the United States? What's your summary statement on this country?
Well, like all other human societies, it was not perfect. But if you compare it not to perfection or an ideal, but to the other countries, it's hard to find another one that can match it.
Quote, I'm using his term, quantitative easing, the so-called QE2. The Fed will purchase wipe that smile off your face. This is serious. This is serious.
Some of these most successful charter schools, that you have these kids not only meeting but exceeding the national standards in places like Harlem and Bedford-Stuyvesant in the South Bronx. And these are not kids who are skimming around training. They're kids chosen by lottery. They don't even test them for ability. They don't even look at their academic records. They take them into the schools and they have hard work and they make it clear at the outset, and they don't tolerate a lot of nonsensical behavior. And these kids are doing incredibly.
What advice would you give a young Thomas Sowell? How do you make something of yourself as an African American in America today?
The way anybody else would. You equip yourself with skills that people are willing to pay for.
I like that. I like that. All right, so yeah, I like that.
One of the things that you can do in the long run, and be forced to do, is simply print more money. And as they print more money, that is simply a hidden form of taxation.
Intellectuals and race, quote, the intelligentsia pay no price for being wrong.
I think that's the secret of their influence. If you look at black husband-wife families, their poverty rate has been in single digits every year since 1994.
Got that spice
It's
in
not
there.
race, it's not ethnicity, it's whether you can manage to stay married.
That's right. Hopelessness.
And some
Hopelessness
garlic.
is one of the big products of the race industry. That you have no chance. The only way that the Constitution can protect us is if we protect the Constitution. If we rise up and revolt, if we vote out of office people who violate the Constitution, then of course it will mean something. If people can do this, say a few pretty words, and we say, oh well, then the Constitution will, over time, erode to the point where it will mean absolutely nothing. It'll be nice words on paper, but people are...
I'm all out of potatoes for now. Maybe I can get some somewhere.
You know, I love talking to you, but I really don't know why. It's all discouraging.
I can
Here's Justice Thomas's question. Thomas Sowell,
figure out I have to
were you ever tempted,
but that's okay.
to temper or change your opinion because of actual or anticipated hostile reactions? No.
Potato. And I have some bread. I just have 3 little pieces of it. It's only enough food. I barely have, I have some apples,
Two events in
some
the
little
life of the
apple
young Clarence
products.
Thomas.
That's it.
1972,
And I
you were a
have one
student at
can
Yale
of
Law
beans.
School, and you came across the Tom Sowell book, Black Education, and you threw it out.
I ate the olives that
And
I
you said
have.
that you thought no
I
black
may
man
have a.
should be thinking that
I
way.
wonder, do I have a
That's
can of
event number one.
olives? I may have
Event
a
number
can
two
of
is
olives.
1978.
Ugh.
Tom is at
Hope I have a can of
participating
olives.
in a conference of some kind at the University of Washington Law School.
Hopefully I have a
You were a
can
young
of
lawyer at
olives.
Monsanto. You came forward with a copy of Race and Economics to have Tom Sowell autographed. Between those two events, throwing out
But
a
I
book
can
by
walk
Tom
and maybe get
and
like
having him autograph one of his
something so
books,
I can
what changed?
Well, I grew
make some
up.
food.
It, if you go wind the clock back in April of 1970, I was part of a riot in Harvard Square to free political prisoners.
Yeah, I had 2
And
potatoes.
in 72, I was at
Like
Yale
what
Law
would be
School.
equivalent like a baked
There's
potato.
all
I had 2
you say
of
about
those.
that. And
I cut them and
this book
fried
by
them.
a black
And then I
man,
had like
and
4
I
pieces of
immediately checked it
bread.
reflexively.
And I had
Then I
1/4
go,
cup
well, as I mentioned to you,
of black bean
when I
product.
graduated, I received a
And
grand total
had
of
some
1 job
coffee
offer. And
product here
that was
too.
in Jefferson City,
But I
Missouri.
had put
So
some
I had
salt,
a
cayenne
beauty of Jefferson City,
pepper,
Missouri,
some
is that you
A1
actually
steak
have
sauce on
time to think,
there,
which
some
is in short supply.
Panda
Both the
Express sweet
people
chili
taking the
sauce on
opportunity to think and
there,
having the time to think. Seemed to
garlic
not be
powder
something
on the
that
bread,
happens as frequently as it should. But I
some
had
pink
quite a bit
Himalayan
of time
salt,
to calm down, and no one
some
was
oil that I've been
pressing
cooking
me
the
to
potatoes
be
in. I had
an
it from
example of an
actually
angry
Sunday,
black or
from
an expert on
yesterday.
black issues or anything like that. I was just doing
So
initially
yeah, I had put
criminal
the
cases
cayenne
in all
pepper
the
and the pink
taxes for the
Himalayan
state of
salt
Missouri.
in the oil that I fried the
And
potatoes
I had
in.
a friend of mine
Ugh,
who's a very dear friend came across an article
I like the way
in
that
early
it gives it that color
1975.
too. Like if I put a little paprika
And he
in there
said,
too, it'll
Clarence,
give it a
there's another
different
black guy
color.
like you. His
Look
name is
really
Thomas Sowell. And it was a review of his book, Race and Economics,
colorful. Give it some color.
in the Wall Street Journal by Michael Novak, another wonderful
So
man.
like to sit
And
and
that was the
appreciate
beginning
my
of it.
food
And
and see what
then
it
I
does.
attempted to locate him. He was
See
on the
what I can
faculty,
do, of
Thomas
course.
Sowell on the faculty of UCLA at the time.
And I,
Any of
not
you
always
who
can
have
do
tried
that,
to
but the way
locate
that I
him
eat, the
or
things
get
that
a
I
hold
do,
of
I
him in
try
those
to
years knows that you may as well
have stuff. That's why a lot of times
go
it's
after a
encouraged,
white
hey,
whale or
just
something.
get some
It's
a drink
impossible.
and just drink
And
it.
it would
I got
be,
stuff to
I
do.
heard, just
I
again,
want
it was
to eat.
providential. A
So I
friend of
gotta
mine
see
who
it.
had been
That comes
hounding
along
about
with it's
Thomas
more to
Sowell,
sit on the
and by
toilet
that
and
time
have a
also
bowel
Walter
movement
Williams,
and allow the food to
said
perhaps
that your friend was
digest
going to be at
and
Washington University Law
feel
School.
what it
And
does
there he
and what
was
kind
on a
of
panel with
product it is and
Professor
stuff
Ruth
like
Bader
that.
Ginsburg
It takes
in
time to be real
February
and
of
to actually do
1979.
real life
And of
activities.
course, like
And there
any
is, I
good
believe, a
groupie, I
slavemanship
chased
that
him
is
down
really
to
overwhelming
get an
at times if
autograph
it
on
is
my Race
allowed
and
to be,
Economics book.
but I cannot
And
allow
I
it
would
to
meet
change
him
me. That is
again.
rough for me,
Of course, a few months
especially
later, I quit
me.
my
I
job.
want to go try to find a
I realized
job.
that I was not going to
And
be in an in-house corporate
for
environment.
me, I don't know what I
The
would
problem
do.
with that was
Probably try to find like a
that
factory job or
I
something
didn't
like
have an
that. But
option number two,
to be able just
or an
to
option or a
work 10 or
plan
12
B. I just
hours
simply quit
and get
because I didn't
1
want to do
hour
it
of a break. I
anymore.
hope I
And
really
I didn't
like
want
the
to get caught up
job,
with the golden
but I still
handcuff
have to let them know, hey,
problem.
when I have to go
So
to the
anyway, I
laboratory, I
wind
have to
up
go to the
in
laboratory, you know.
Washington, D.C.
So
And
it's
lo and
tough.
behold, he's making a round kill staff and read without having read any of his
I
material.
don't know
I
if I
came
will
to
be
his
able to have
defense,
something to
and
drink or whatever near me or whatever.
and he decided that he would
That's
take me under his wings. And that was 1980, and he called me up for that conference in San Francisco.
I was looking at my
after Ronald Reagan was elected in December of 1980. And then we, of course, all of us were beaten pretty severely after that. And we became friends. And we even friends. Shortly after that, he came to meet the clinic. And
This what I
we've
got.
been
This my
friends
plate.
since. And so I
This my
spent
plate. This my
quite a bit
plate.
of
This
time
my
walking around
sky shape. Oh, what kind of question is that, YouTube? Sky's shape. Okay.
in the tower and walk
What sky? Sky's shape?
over the years.
Are
So
you
that's
asking me
been
what is the shape of the sky?
25 years or
The
so.
shape of the sky is very
Justice
quite
House,
interesting to me because I believe that it is not such a straight thing. I believe that it is almost a round thing, but how could it just be round if it's a natural thing?
was the Jim Crow South.
It could not possibly. All the clouds, all of the things.
A house with no running water. You grew up in Georgia.
Please, the things would disperse. It would not be able to be such round as it is. So I believe that there's like a cone or something on top of it. And it is. Probably, perhaps. I read something in 2024 that I read something in 2024 that there's something there, and that is kind of like almost a closure.
Despite all this, quote, I learned in childhood everything
Shit.
I needed
Touch my
to negotiate the challenges and
some
difficulties
cayenne pepper
that
on
lay
it.
ahead. How could that have been?
Well, I think it's something that Professor So has been trying to stress, that a lot of the groundwork to difficult
Yeah, it's like it's saying something like, you know, it's something up there.
and that's what
So I was trying to figure out like what could it possibly be?
If you look at basic economics, he talks about attitude of self-reliance, self-discipline.
What is he?
How important those were. Where did I first
They
hear
have
that?
something on the earth, whatever this is called,
My grandmother.
and it's a cap.
My nuns. Same thing.
Okay, because this is the thing, the amount of things that are in the galaxy, because of all the stuff that is happening and the practices such as surgeries and all kinds of stuff, I wonder, like the removal of organs and not the actual growth of organs, where some bodies are not being fully developed because they're being used as livestock, and perhaps they haven't figured out what to do with all the important parts, so they just don't grow them, and they just take away. They've been doing that for so long. Why do you believe that there was once dinosaurs and giants and stuff like that? I look so little bitty tiny to how things used to be years ago. You have the same dinosaurs that all the way goes all the way to today. You know, what would it be? What would it be? A dog, a Tyrannosaurus Rex? What would it be? A saber-toothed tiger?
Were you
A woolly mammoth?
She called you out on it?
Well, I wasn't scared.
All these dinosaurs that I read about, shit, 35 years ago or 30 years ago too.
I was not a dedicated 8th grader.
It's interesting. I'm interested in dinosaurs, but that's because there is some kind of element that went into breathing and growing. The natural things like water, 2 parts hydrogen, 2 parts oxygen. It's not the case anymore. And so these are really important things. But there are rules. And when someone starts to really say, listen, we've had enough. What were you trying to prove? It's time to get the real water back out here, and we have to figure out how to make it. There's water companies, vitamin waters, and all kind of color black. They got black waters and cardboard box waters and can waters, and you know, they're literally selling tap water, you know, from different municipalities and stuff like that. You know, what is it proving? Nothing. You know, and for me to avoid the aquamation, which it happens so often, and that's a lot of times. So sometimes when I'm drinking the water, it goes right through me. And instead, when I have juice, I'm able to really like kind of maintain it and keep it in me more. And so the shape of the sky is really important to me because I get the chance, or I would rather get the opportunity to understand, like, what does this all mean? As far as the shape and what has happened, what is the purpose? to kind of trap me in a situation that I cannot go any place, go further, understand, to block out aliens, unidentified flying objects, and other things that just drop in. And then the travel or the passport situation, mass incarceration, citizenship, and all those things like that really matter to me as well. So that is actually YouTube, my response to the question that you asked here today. I am Jasmine Renee Davis. What is the shape? What's sky's shape? Is that what you're asking? Sky's shape. What is sky? I don't know. So can you tell me what you mean? I don't know in particular what sky shape is. But see, that's what I always ask. What exactly are you talking about? Because I will go on and on about something and I'm like, oh shit, that's not what this meant. Or it's just I never get what someone else's want to say. And it's always me. I'm having a conversation with myself.
He said that we are going to have algebra 2 next year. And I said, Father, I have not had algebra 1. And he's unsentimentally, and he simply said, well, teach yourself algebra 1 on the farm this summer. So that's how I learned algebra 1. When I went to the nuns, explained this to them, they were all warm and fuzzy about it. Learn to teach yourself algebra 1 on the farm this summer. So that's what I did.
My dad used to he used to be so strict and tell me to put my lip.
Sorry to say it's unfair and all that sort of thing.
Put my lip.
Then used.
Tell me to put my
I
lip.
still would have to learn algebra 1.
Up north. And got good education.
For so anyways of my
before becoming the top
beauty,
soul that we know.
my
before
fashion,
going off to Howard and
my
Harvard,
sense,
getting this educational career.
my things that mean so much to me.
You moved up north.
All of these
And Yale Law
things.
School. And you encountered hard times in a surprising place, Yale itself. Again,
That
my
truly
grandfather's son
matters
quotes.
so
At Yale, I felt as though I'd been
much.
tricked.
And
That
say
some of the people who
that
claimed to be helping me were in fact
I
hurting me. At least Southerners were upfront about their bigotry. Not so the paternalistic big city
oh,
whites
I
who offered you a helping
can't
hand
say
so long as you were careful to agree with them. Close quote.
I
Paternalistic whites
appreciate
up north.
you
What were they thinking?
I have
and
no
you
idea.
too.
I think they're. What I learned in the South, and this with people, and this is the reason I started really gravitating toward Professor Soul, and that was he was honest. He told the truth, even if it's a hard truth. Okay, go back to the head of my seminary. Clarence, you have to teach yourself algebra 1 on the farm. That's hard. It's a hard truth. I've got to learn algebra 1 because I'm going to have algebra 2 next year. Professor Soul, he talks often about illusions. People give you nice illusions, like a magician or something, or they give you a nice theory. But reality is hard. Reality is right in front of you, so you can have a nice theory and it runs right into reality. I may have had an illusion or an image, or I have been sold a bill of goods either way you want it. You'd like to put it about what would await me up north when leaving the South. When you're in the South,
I just put the beans right in the skillet that I had to
you
garlic
had
with.
separate water fountains, you had poverty, you had bigotry, you had separate schools, all the things that let's say the Brahmins versus the rest of them, the bigotry against the Eastern and Southern. Polish, never. It was very complicated. And also, there were people who didn't particularly want like what the South was doing to blacks, but they weren't inviting to the blacks. That yes, slavery. It was an awakening, and it was honest. You either there was no grade curve. You got what you got.
Any fictional character you want to have dinner with. What is that supposed to mean?
90, you got a 90.
I don't get it. Next question, please. Pass.
And it was transparent because it was so small. So that
okay, I probably should answer every question, but I don't know what the question means, so I cannot give. I'm not going to give a random reply just to say that I can answer the question, just so it doesn't look incomplete. Fuck it. I'm not the one that have to deal with the incomplete. Motherfucker who asked me the question had to deal with the incomplete. I ain't scared of shit. I leave that shit blank. The fuck, I'd rather have an incomplete from you than being motherfucker
say what he wants you.
incomplete.
That is yours.
What?
And in all the
what do you mean by that? What did you just comment on my stuff? Why did you say, are you quiet on the creek? What kind of fucking shit is that? What message are you putting out here? I don't know all this stuff. So please don't come on here being stupid. What is it that you have to say? I'm Jasmine Renee Davis.
And he has never said something that was an obvious untruth or something that contradicted something that he said before. If he changed his mind, he changed his mind. So when I came from the South, experiences with the nuns and in the seminary with people whose word I could trust. And suddenly, in the Holy Cross, and it wasn't so much.
Are you quiet or loud?
Probably
what?
More on the
what are you talking about?
That was troublesome. But anyway, that's
I'm not quiet.
Past. That's over 50 years ago. But he had similar experiences, and you look for people who are honest with you. And you
still don't know what you're saying.
A sixth sense.
Do you hear me? What is quiet? What is loud?
And here, no one who lived in New England. So I may as well have gone to Mars or something. I remember when I got into, I was admitted to Harvard Law School, my senior year of college, and I called my grandmother, wonderful, wonderful person, and told her that I had gotten accepted to Harvard Law School, and she said, "That's wonderful, but when are you going to stop going to school?" And so it when I went to jail, I had one family member.
I'm actually just myself. So loud on the creek.
You and Tom.
Creek.
Jim Crow South.
Creek. So you're loud on the creek. What are you talking about?
And I'm also struck by this question. Just stayed with me all. That's what I was found myself thinking about in the morning when I have to wake up. You were raised by your grandfather. And your grandfather was raised by his grandmother, who had been born in slavery. So that's 2 lifetimes away from. Reject, you fight against white prejudice, but also against any notion of.
I feel my boss inside of me.
And that puts you in a. To stand against all of that.
I think the people, but I think there are far more people who were with us than you are led to know. I mean, a part of this, just go back to what Professor Soul says, he talks about illusions. People create illusions. When you look at
You know, the idea of politicians saying it, leaders saying it, but I didn't know anybody think about it. It doesn't make any sense. You don't have a car. It's not your neighborhood. You don't know the teachers. You don't have a telephone. You can't participate in anything. And there may be some hostility. And no one has said it's going to improve your education. And so why would you bus your kid? And I remember saying those things at Yale. And the bottom line was, well, you shouldn't believe that because you're black. Well, that doesn't really do much for me. But I think there are more people. If you look at the polls, I don't think it was ever more than 50. I think the black support busing, I don't think ever topped much more than 50%. So what happened to the other 50% who didn't agree? It's the same thing with racial preferences. The leaders, they thought one thing. If you asked the people, they thought another. So my point is that I don't think it is as lonely out here as people think. There are so many people who just simply want to know the truth and be told that if they made an effort, circumstances would improve. I think and don't you think it's ironic that Walter Williams had the exact same outlook? Another friend of mine who grew up in the inner city of Philadelphia, Jay Parker, the exact same thing. Glenn Lowry is here. He is a friend. He grew up in Chicago. So why is it that the people who grew up in these circumstances have one set of views and the elites who want to tell us what we should think have another set of views? Okay. That's his point. And that's why you get his book, Conflict of Visions or Visions of the Anointed, etc. That's what he's trying to explain with this different worldview. But I'm willing to concede that other people can agree. The problem is they fight for the universality of their point of view. And they are degrading you, defaming you by slander, by harming. Disagrees. They don't take the argument. They don't say, why do you disagree? Or they don't permit you, say, a luxury of having your own background that leads you to these conclusions. Rather, they say you have no right to have that point of view because, and that is the problem. You've never heard, as far as I'm concerned, Professor Sola says that someone ought to agree with him. He disagrees with them, but he never says what they ought to think. They have a right to be wrong. He'll tell you that. On the other hand, there seems to be this overwhelming pressure for us to agree with the prevailing notions, which I consider almost illusory in a sense.
Another couple of questions about Tom's influence on the early Clarence Thomas. This addresses Condi and wonders why we titled this Water in the Desert. This is from my grandfather's son, that when you discovered Grace and you felt like a thirsty man gulping down a glass of cool water in the desert. Now explain that. That's more than an intellectual reaction. That's a kind of visceral, I found something.
Well, I think visceral was the word. I was also thinking, Lily, I don't think that, we can talk in retrospect about these things. When you are 20-something years old and you have worked hard to achieve certain things and it all begins to look like it's coming apart and you're isolated. You're isolated in so many ways. Is ostracism. If you don't buy into these notions, you are ostracized. So you are put in a position of being alone and being on your own. And you have these views, you have these instincts. The politicians, the people with megaphones, the people who have the loudest voices, that you're wrong, that tells you you're bad, that there's something awful about you. So there's something that you think about it, everything you get, whether it's from a parent or a neighbor or the people you respect or you hear the most, is negative. You'd be disconcerted in some way. and you're 20-something years old. Your plans to get a job in tax, to move to Atlanta, to move to Georgia, they've all imploded. You have student loans, et cetera, and you're sitting in Jefferson City, Missouri. And Jefferson City was great for me, but that's not where you plan to go. You plan to go back home. You plan to be in a big firm or to be doing great things, and you're sitting in Jefferson City, Missouri. And you're questioning, am I right? Did I make a mistake? And you're not getting inputs that help you figure out what you think. You're getting yelled at. You're getting defamed. You're getting more of this negativity. And then you see this. You see, here's a man who's thought it through, and he has reached many of the conclusions through thinking that you've reached instinctively. And you finally, and that's why my friend said, there is another black guy out there who thinks like you. And so, yes, I ran from my office down the street, down High Street in Jeff City, to his office and looked at that. And then I was on this pursuit. I mean, it was literally like a drink of water. And it was the beginning that it's okay to hear someone who's thought it through. And it makes sense what your instincts were have been now demonstrated in a logical, analytical way.
You're not alone.
And you're definitely not alone. And even if it's just one other person, that's enough. When you've been alone and fighting these battles for so long, one other person makes a crowd. And then you discover others, and there weren't that many. I mean, when I think back on those years of the Reagan administration, for example, you had Clarence Pendleton, who died of a heart attack, and the way they treated him was abhorrent. You had Walter, who was just Walter. Jay, there weren't a lot of people who stood with you, and a number of people, have been broken by the criticism, the negativity, the attacks, and then other people just simply couldn't handle it in a variety of ways.
Once again, my grandfather's son. This is you writing about what you've been discussing here. If a distinguished scholar like Thomas Sowell could be dismissed as not really black for daring to challenge the liberal orthodoxies on race, you're commenting here on what was happening to him at this time. What would happen to me if I dared to agree with him? I didn't know whether I would ever be brave enough to break ranks and speak my mind. And as I understand it, it was your friendship with Tom that helped make you make the firm decision that you would speak your mind.
No, he caused a lot of problems in my life. I hold him directly responsible. What do you do when you have an example like my grandfather, like my nuns, who stood up? What do you do? I mean, you think of those women in the segregated South, they just stood up. They didn't make a big deal of it, they did it. My grandfather, no education, raised by a freed slave, and he never complained. He did it. He was just a great man. Now what do? How do you complain when he had nothing, no education? What do you say to him? But he sets this example of how you live your life. Then you meet someone like a Tom Sowell, who literally never felt. He was on TV programs, he was interviewed, not flustered, didn't back down, didn't run for cover. And what am I supposed to do? And you bear it, and you do it. And was I afraid? Absolutely. I'm a kid. I'm a young guy. I go to Washington. I don't know anybody there. I'm not sophisticated. But he's a model. Here's how you do it. You just do it. It's the right thing to do, so you do it. If they can prove you wrong, fine. If they call you names or say you're not black, I mean, how stupid is that? Look at me. Then they say things like, oh, black is a state of mind. So you see walking down a road and a Klansman comes up and he says, "What's your state of mind?" I mean, this is nonsense. And so you see people who actually just, no, if you disagree with me, tell me why. And how could you say, you just said that, look, your grandfather's raised by a freed slave. You were raised by him. And someone says you're not black. But actually, most people who say that were whites. That was the most ridiculous thing. So I was at the University of Georgia once. And this white kid comes up to me. I don't know why people have this bad habit of apologizing to people they don't know. So he comes up to me and he says, "I apologize for your bad education in Georgia." I said, "What education are you talking about?" He said, "In Georgia." I said, "Well, look, I'm not going through all of it. I'm not saying I had the best education, but in high school, I had 2 years of German, 2 years of French, 3 years of Latin, a year of physics, a year of chemistry. Then I had history and all the other things." I said, "Now, is that bad?" He said, "Well, I didn't have all that. And I'm in the AP class." I said, "Segregation is wrong. You don't have to denigrate the education in order to talk about a moral wrong. If I received the best education in the world and was segregated, it's still morally wrong." But again, to have courage to stand up, first I think you need a model. Much of my life I modeled in the way I've had to stand up. I was not particularly courageous. Don't think that. Oh my goodness, no. But with examples of people like my grandparents, my nuns, Professor Soul, it leaves you no choice. They did it. You have to do it. And it's one of the cultures that talk about bringing honor to their family, to their parents. I love those because the way that I think of things, when my grandfather died suddenly in 1983, the decision I made was to live the rest of my life as a memorial to theirs. So,
from there, I'm pretty good at trying.
So, and the point I was going to make is that is the way I feel about Professor So.
All right. Watch this, because I'm going to lighten the mood here. Back in the early 90s, I knew somebody who was clerking for you, and I hoped to meet you. I happened to be in Washington. You were out. But she took me.
I heard you were coming by.
Yeah. She took me, this is Laura Ingram.
Yeah.
She took me into your chambers, and I noticed on the bookshelf directly behind your big desk chair, there was a brass plaque. And I looked at what that brass plaque said, and I thought, my first thought was, I can't wait to tell Tom Sowell about this. A couple weeks later, I'm back here at the Hoover Institution, having lunch with Tom, and I said, "Tom, you are going to love this." I was just in Justice Thomas's chambers, and on the bookshelf behind his desk, he has a brass plaque, and that plaque says, "Do not emanate into the penumbra."
You were talking to the culprit.
Tom Sowell said, "Oh, I know. I gave that plaque to Clarence."
It's still there.
It's still there.
It's been like that. I think about him, and I do want to say something about it. I tried to capture him in words, and you'd say, "Oh, he's a friend." Well, he's more than a friend. You say he's a mentor. No, he's more than a mentor. You say he's a hero. No, he's more than a hero. You say that he is an intellectual giant. Well, he's more than that. And I tried to think of all the ways I knew them, and I can give you all the pieces, and the sum of the parts are much greater than are not as great as he is. I can't touch on the emotions. I can't touch on the phone calls. I actually was beaten up a lot. I don't know if you knew that. And I would get these calls from him. I'm afraid. I mean, just the most amazing calls. One of the things that happens in Washington is when you're under attack, the phone stops ringing. Only you hear only from your friends. And he is a person, but when he was healthy, I would hear from all the time. And I could always get through to him. Other people couldn't get him, but I could always get him. And I could always spend time with him. And he made himself available. And he always seemed very protective of me and compassionate. And I think the part that people don't talk enough about, much of his work comes from compassion. We lived in those neighborhoods. And when you say basically that the people there were all pathetic, that every black teacher, every black school, every black institution had to be inferior. Okay, what are you saying about weekends, little kids? What do you say about these nuns who taught for $20 a month? What do you say about them? What are you saying about the people who, in the worst situation, did an extraordinary job? And that's what he's saying. He's showing compassion. He's saying to people who are in those circumstances now, there's a way out. Hopelessness. You already said yes. And that's what my nuns would always say. Hopelessness was the greatest sin. Because that you give up, then everything's. And what he said, this concept, I got to New England and I learned these concepts of enemy and alienation. Never heard any of that stuff. It says get up and go get your work done. But my point is that it's out of that. It's a sense that don't you have a feeling for the people who were there? What the other little Tom Sowell who's there? And he'll tell you this too. We knew kids who were a lot smarter than us. I never claimed to be the smartest kid in my neighborhood. There were lots of black kids that they were a lot smarter than I was telling them that the kids I knew who were the first National Merit Scholars I knew were both black. And I didn't make enough effort to be one of them, I can tell you that. I wanted to play basketball. And so you always have this humility of knowing, or this reality of knowing. There were kids who were much more talented than we were. And if you go back and you look at his autobiography, he'll tell you about the kid who was in his neighborhood, who was so smart, and I forget his name.
His garbage out.
I think it was Eddie.
And he always talks about it, the example that he set, or the people at the library, or the black teacher, okay, who wouldn't give up. So my point is that there is, with the reality of your world, there are people you care about. There's something inside that you cannot just use statistics and numbers and politics to overwhelm them and to say that there is no reason for them to even try. I constantly heard, there was a young black kid I saw years ago. She said, did you ever feel like giving up? And I told her 100 times a day. So, and when people constantly inundate you and cement you with this, you can't do it, you can't do it, so try. And that's what I heard from contemporaries. The man ain't gonna let you do nothing. Over and over. And that's what you're hearing from the elites and in the general press. The man ain't gonna let you do nothing because of slavery, because of this, because of that. And Tom Sowell is trying to work through that as a compassionate person, saying there is a way out. The reality is it's a hard way. And my grandfather, I thought of something when he was talking about, reality being so hard. My grandfather would say to us glibly, life is rough, then you die. But I think what he was telling us was there is no easy way. It's going to be hard if you give up, and it's going to be hard if you try. Either way, it's going to be hard.
Tom pays a lot of attention to the court, as you know, and
Yes, too much.
so
And he makes too many sounds.
Students for fair admissions versus Harvard. This is a case the court decided in 2023. Writing for the majority, Chief Justice John Roberts, university concluded wrongly that the touchstone of an individual's identity is not challenges bested, skills built, or lessons learned, but the color of their skin. Our constitutional history does not tolerate that choice, close quote. That was just 2 years ago. We had a civil war. A century later, we had the civil rights movements. And then as late as Bakke in 1978, and Grutter was just 2003, we still have the court saying it is permissible to draw distinctions among Americans based on race. Why has it taken so long?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's just the human condition. Just think about it. I think I look at it as, it may be that it took a long time, but it happened. I don't think this is a perfect country. I don't think the Constitution is perfect, but I do think it's perfectible. I do think that if we work at things and we're honest and tell the truth, we'll move in the right directions, even if it's slowly. And you go in a room that it had become very fashionable to say that certain groups should be treated better than others because they've been treated worse in the past. And we don't put people to the test. Say, which groups? Who? What about the biracial kids? What about the kids who weren't here? What about the kids who came here in poverty? What about the kids who's from your preferred group who is actually from a very prosperous family? Who gets to make these choices? And anyway, how's that consistent with our constitutional norm? And that's a hard thing to do. If you think of how few people were willing to stand up and defend that norm, either before, even just think about Plessy. How many members of the court took the right position in Plessy? So why would you expect people to be different? Okay, and it is not easy to stand against howling winds. It is not easy and not a lot of people will stand with you when things are looking their worst. And so you get an individual here, an individual there. You can ask anyone, who stands up in education or anything else, that when the going gets tough, how many people show up to help them? And it's not a lot. I was at EEOC, remember, I was at the eye of that storm for years. I was through my 30s at Department of Education and EEOC. The DC Circuit was a bit of a respite. I was only there like a year and a half, but it's just, I think it's a lonely journey, and I think that I would ask the people who know it's the right thing, but have done nothing.
You're known stare decisis, the doctrine that lower courts are always bound by precedent and that even the Supreme Court should think very, very carefully, long and hard before overturning a previous decision. And you're known, even among originalists, especially skeptical of stare decisis. I interviewed Justice Alito a few months ago. This is Justice Alito. Quote, Justice Thomas, of all the justices,
My ears feel like they're open up more now.
Precedents.
I feel like I can hear better.
Is clearly wrong. He is more open into examining it than, let's say, even Justice Scalia was. Okay. Is that, you can just shut me down on this one because I'm not, is that partly because of this long history of the court getting things wrong again and again and again on race, that so much needs to be dug out and overturned? Is that one aspect of your skepticism towards stare decisis?
No, I think you can make a lot of mistakes by accepting false premises. And I do think that we have, over the years, accepted because of repetition or I would say not even true traditions, but faux traditions, certain precedents. And and I'm not willing to do that. If I were on a court of appeals, yes, I would do it. I might criticize it, but I would follow it. If I were in a district court, I would follow it. I'm duty bound to do that. But this is the end of the line. The Supreme Court is the end of the line. And at some point, we should, if something is obviously wrong, one of us should question it and not just simply be willing to just go along. So for example, if someone said that this floor were brown and you said it was tan, and it had been decided that it was tan, and I might think, well, there's more brown than tan, but could be either one. That's a precedent that you accept, because it could be either one. Both make sense, even though as an initial matter, I might have come out differently. Now, if someone had decided earlier that this floor was orange, and we look at it and say, oh, that's obviously not orange, what would you do?
The Supreme Court?
Yeah.
I'd overturn that precedent.
Well, it's ridiculous.
Right.
And I think that when something is obviously wrong, we should at least explain it and not just rolly. I think the people in the country, it's their constitution, and they're owed more. Now, I want to bring it back to Professor Soule. One of the lessons I learned from him when he did interviews back in the 1980s was he refused to accept false premises. So if you go back and you look at those early interviews, people would assume, for example, that it's good, say, for example, that certain social policy, say welfare, a certain welfare policy was good. And he would never let them get beyond that initial point. He would challenge the premise. So then he wouldn't have to make these half-baked arguments, sort of distinguishing that policy from something else, because the premise itself was false. And so that became sort of even if I didn't have an argument against the particular premise, I would at least make people justify it. And that's all you're doing. Look, if this is going to affect our lives, tell me why. Tell me where it came from. Tell me why it's still good law. Tell me why we should continue to follow it if it's a false premise. And that's all you see from me. And I don't understand why that's so complicated. And so think of the alternative. You say that just out of habit, I should accept something that is obviously wrong, that this floor is orange. And yet I've heard people say that I don't like Starry's lights. Most people don't even know what it is, including people who use them. So what I did is I go back and I teach courses on these things and dig into them so I can get a fuller understanding. And what you realize is people are just saying things because they're trying to preserve a particular precedent that they like, not because they are actually wedded to the notion of stare decisis.
In that clip that was played just before we began speaking, you saw a video of young men listening to a video.
Yeah, I watched them on YouTube this morning.
And there are hundreds of those on YouTube. What makes Tom Sowell a nonagenarian economist a rock star?
YouTube. You know, how did he persuade a young man who had a few years before been in the middle of a riot, who voted for McGovern, who thought he was too conservative, who was angry, and yet a few years later he sees Tom Sowell as basically water to a thirsty man in the desert. I think that you see that honesty, and at some point, you are you are to believe. You become a slave. I think people, at some point you felt like you had become a slave to other people's preconceived notions. And you wanted to think it through for yourself. And here's a man who gives you license and gives you a way. He didn't tell you you have to agree with him. There's not a word in it. He says, here's another way of looking at it. No, I don't think that. I don't agree with that. He didn't say anything about what you should think. But he gives you a way to go through this, to clear the fog away. And then in that context, you reach your own conclusions. But and notice that the beauty of those young men is they didn't have this reflexive negative reactions, right? They didn't have this door, this barrier. And that is, you asked me, being a descendant coming directly from slaves, we actually farmed on a part of that plantation. We grew up every summer, we farmed on that plantation. But people would discount that because there's this overriding public view that you're not supposed to think this way, therefore you're not black, therefore you're discredited, nothing you say matters. Tom Sowell, in this time, and with the availability of YouTube and other things, and people's capacities for them to listen to him, they can now make up their own mind. So I received his book, Race and Economics, made all the difference in the world. They see him, in his own words, on YouTube. He isn't angry. He isn't calling them pain. He's pointing out why this doesn't make sense. Yeah, it's a wonderful idea to say everybody should have equal this and equal that. But reality is different. And think about what he said when he was a Marxist. That Marx had this great theory that explained, the people in the big houses versus Harlem. And it explained it in a neat package. But reality, seeing what caused the problem in Puerto Rico with respect to the sugar production, okay, with the effect of minimum wage. So yeah, the idea of reality says something different. And I think those young men, they get a chance to
just be like the matter. Oh, it's trouble. It's violence. No, it's not.
But will they all
do not try to be on some bullshit.
We simply
I'm not doing anything with all my information, so you rather not even
I have never
skip over what the fuck you supposed to do so I can do my shit. So you want to make the narrative.
That's the reality.
I am alive. I have tears. I have all kinds of stuff.
Because there's certain places that are just it works. And that's true. I mean, I've been to Yale Law School, but that's the way it works. And to say it isn't is to lie. Okay, so you don't get, and even if you do, it comes with all this antecedent or this attendant animosity and negativity. In other words, to make it unpalatable. So this we'll allow here, but this person's views are unpalatable. Whereas if you agreed with, it's sweetened up and there's rose petals and this is presumptively the right idea. And so what these kids are getting is all that stuff is not there. It's just available to everybody. And they get to make up their own mind. The five of them or whatever can sit together and decide whether they agree without all this negative trapping.
Cayenne pepper.
I'd be happy to carry on for another 2-3 hours. But couple of last questions. Who comes next? We see those young men listening to him so intently, and I can't help feeling that one of the reasons is the moral authority of his experience. They listen to Tom Sowell, and they're listening to somebody who grew up in Jim Crow South, who had to go to this drinking fountain and not that one. They listen to you, and they know somebody who saw it with his own eyes. But this is fading from lived memory. How do we, I guess it's a crude way to put it, but I'll put it this way, who comes next?
Well, so when I went to the court, I sat with Justice Marshall. A 10-minute...
Thurgood Marshall.
Yes, 10-minute courtesy visit ballooned into 2.5 hours. And during that, I said, I wish that had I been older, I would have had the courage to do what you did with you in the South. And he came forward in his wheelchair, across his desk. He said, I have to do in my time what I have to do. You have to do in your time what you have to do.
Oh,
You're looking at those young men and these young kids who are writing essays. That's the future. Their experience is going to be different. It's going to be hip hop. It's going to be the inner city. It's going to be all these social policies. But it's going to have its own relevance as we recede into history, and the lives that we have lived become more historical events than reality. The fact that those young people are thinking is the crucial step. His success is that he got them thinking on their own, and now he can consider that a victory. We could not get that. I threw black education myths and tragedies out. And what did I say? No black man has a right to think that way. Okay, 5 years later, less than 5 years later, I see this book as a blessing. Those young men, there might be some today who think this particular idea is not a good idea, but then they see another one. But the thing that I heard that impressed me was they said, I didn't think of that. Or, that's interesting. And I thought, they were in the video about President Obama, I thought what he said was good. But then, I thought about with Professor Sullivan, well, maybe he isn't that good. I have to think about it. That's all. The victory is the fact that they have to think, and they are willing to do it. And I think that will continue.
Justice Thomas, Tom and I got into a kind of little tradition where I would end an interview with him by having him read a passage from his books. And I wonder if you would conclude our conversation this morning by reading some of your concurrence in Fair Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard.
That's a lot of reading. I mean, why'd you give him those short, pithy things? This is right next thing you would give me to read the Iliad or something. Let's see, I'll try to read it. The great failure of this country was slavery and its progeny. And the tragic failure of this court was its misinterpretation of the Reconstruction Amendments. We should not repeat this mistake merely because we think, as our predecessors thought, that the present arrangements are superior to the Constitution. The court's opinion sees the university's admissions policies for what they are: rudderless, race-based preferences designed to ensure a particular racial mix in their entering classes. These policies are plainly and boldly unconstitutional. While I'm painfully aware of the social and economic ravages which have befallen my race and all who suffer discrimination, I hold out enduring hope that this country will live up to its principles so clearly enunciated in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States, that all men are created equal, are equal citizens, and must be treated equally before the law.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I feel my blood dispersing through me, coming through me rather, moving, and it feels like electricity. Gotta do something for myself.
Everybody, we're going to talk about a very different aspect of Thomas Sowell's work, and that is his work as an historian. and not everybody will get how much he is an historian, but he really is. And I want to begin by asking Victor to talk a bit about that, and also maybe say a little bit about your relationship with the enigmatic, elusive, and indeed largely invisible Thomas Sowell. First, Victor, in what sense is Thomas Sowell an historian?
Well, he's by training an economist, but it was almost autodidactic. He versed himself
See, all
in
that is
history, and
coming
he
up,
tried to
and which would
apply
be a
what he learned about
mucus.
economics
And I want some
and
of that to come up
sociology.
out of
So he
me
wrote this
so
great
that it doesn't
trilogy,
turn into whatever. But it
Race
has
and
to go
Culture,
to its
Migrations
proper
and
spots. But I
Culture,
also want
and
to
Conquest of
keep making
Culture.
sure that I can
And as he explained
move
it to me,
things through my
he
body
did this
any
when he
kind
was
of way. So whether it
65
be
and
through
started. So he
tears,
wrote
through
1,600
blowing
pages.
through
And it
snot,
wasn't just that he was 65, he accomplished that in 4
sweat, bowel
years.
movements,
And it was so
urine,
large that the original idea that it was
spitting it
going to
up,
be one volume, he
vomit.
broke up 1995, 1997, and 1999. And
I have to
very
make
briefly,
sure.
the first volume, Race and Culture, his effort, as I interpret it, and I ask him, was to globalize the racial situation in the United States and try to inform the people that what we thought was a unique situation with the history of slavery and Jim Crow was a human phenomenon, and it happened in places and times all over the world. And that he was also he used a lot of his economic knowledge about inequality. We'll hear more about that from The Economist. And his point was that inequality wasn't the problem in itself.
Oh, what are you saying?
It was the people who suffered from
What does that
inequality,
mean?
what
does that
their
have to do with
standard
me?
of living was.
Hello
And
from
they were
Australia.
able to be
Is that how you
prosperous
say it?
and secure,
Australia?
sometimes because of
And then what
inequality.
is that? A
Then
picture
inequality was
of?
not the
Is that supposed to be a
If it was a
kangaroo?
problem and the
What does
people
that
who were on the
mean?
lower end of the
I don't get
spectrum but were prosperous.
All I did was
and he
read
gave
the
examples
words.
throughout history
But
across time
what is
and
that supposed
space.
to
Then envy
mean?
was a
Why is it
problem.
a hello from
We heard
Australia?
from Glenn about
For what? Why did you
Tocqueville,
have
and
to say that to me?
Tocqueville said most people would
How come I
rather
just
be
couldn't I don't know. Can you
uh,
explain what you mean?
equal and poor than
I
have
have not been, I don't know what
inequality and be
Australia
better off
means.
affluent.
I
And that
I
was
don't know
one
if
of the
it, because
things.
everything is thing. So the
In
land,
the
everything
second
is
volume,
there. So
Migrations,
there was a
Race and
specific
Migrations,
area that
he
was
looked at
named that,
particular
but it's
groups,
all
the Germans,
just
the
open.
Italians, the
So
Jews,
I would perhaps
Japanese,
believe that Australia
and his
is
Don't
like
forget the Scots.
what and Scots.
some sort of
Out
language.
out of deference for I didn't want to mention the Scots because there are borderland people that were sort of backward on this analysis.
Still are.
Why?
But his point was that certain peoples that in their own societies might not have been esteemed, they might not have owned land, but they had human capital. They understood in a very prescient way how the economy
What does hello
worked.
mean?
He uses the word human capital a lot,
Why
middleman
not?
a lot, and when they leave the
I didn't
confines
say why
of their
not,
own
because
societies, and
I
they
don't
go,
understand why
in the
not. I'm just
case
saying like
of people
what
from
exactly
India
are
to
you talking
Africa,
about?
or Jews throughout Europe,
What does it mean to
or
me, Australia?
Japanese to America, or Chinese
I don't know
throughout
what
the
Australia
Pacific. They do very
is.
well, and
What is the point of
there's
Australia?
a
How come
resentment
kangaroos are
against
there?
their
What's there?
prosperity,
What kind of
but
minerals do you
they
have in
can
Australia?
embody certain universal skills about punctuality, discipline, the value of education, the knowledge of the economy, and they have no social inhibition about being
What
a
kind of food
so-called
do you have in
middleman
Australia?
in
What do you do
a
there? You got
traditional
some.
society that
I want to
honors
make some
landowning
money.
and
I want
aristocracy
to
and birth.
eat.
This doesn't really
It
matter
means
as
I'm
much
saying
to
hello, and
them,
I'm from
and they
Australia, and I
succeed
stumbled upon your
quite well despite the
stream.
prejudices that they
You
incur
stump?
because they're
Why?
often
What's
a
up?
minority within
Do you
this
feel better now?
population. And it
How?
really is
What
kind
is the
of a window
problem?
on the United States, why certain groups are
What do you mean
disliked or
stream? Tell me stream.
stereotyped. Jews, for
Because
example,
I
or
can
Indian
name some
Americans.
things
The
about a
final one,
stream of
conquest,
my own.
race,
Is it my
race and
smile?
conquest,
Is
race
it
and
the
culture.
recording?
And
Is
he points
it
out
my voice? The things that I am doing?
it's very funny that cultural transformation makes a big difference.
But
whether
you're
the
from
conqueror
Australia. Is that
sophisticated,
it? What do you mean
civilized,
from?
or backward.
What else is it? I
So
mean,
the
that's all you want me to
British,
know?
in the hierarchy
From.
of
There's
the
no
Greek
problem.
and
Tell me
Roman
about Australia.
value of civilization
Okay.
way down there when the
A
Romans
U
encountered
S
them. They are conquered by the
T
Romans,
R
and yet
A
they
L
absorb this
I
Roman
A.
culture,
I
and they're
don't
better
know
off for
how
it
to
because
read
a
the
number of
letters.
examples.
You said
And
there's no
sometimes it's quite
problem.
controversial
So
by
what can I
indigenous
say and what
people
can
are
I not
conquered
say?
by European settlers, and this is genocidal, but they absorb this culture.
Probably that's
On the
all I
other
know
hand,
about
if the
Australia. Probably
conquering
would be
power is
kangaroos
less
and maybe
sophisticated,
safaris.
i.e. white-skinned Germans
Maybe is it
coming
hot
across
over
the
there?
Danube and
I don't
the
have much of
Rhine
an
in the 5th century
education
AD,
about
then society
Australia.
itself suffers
I
because
don't
they
want to be
view a less
stereotypical about
sophisticated
Australia.
paradigm. And when you look at the
You said
paradigm
that
of human
Jew
capital,
want me to I have to
it's
change it.
basically
There's no problem. Tell me
empiricism,
about Australia.
meritocracy, value for religion, but religion separate. It's kind of the Western paradigm to the degree that the society has that and
I don't
conquers
know what's
another
true
one
or
that's
what's not
conquered while
about
it's being
Australia.
deprived of liberty, slowly
What is
evolves and
Australia?
absorbs that. But if it's the other direction from a non-Western or less sophisticated society, it results, as you see,
Here and I'm
whether
saying
it's
hello.
Byzantium in
Australia is a country and I
1453
live
or
here.
the Romans
What do you know about
in the 5th
Australia?
century AD, it can be catastrophic.
Okay.
That
So
was very
you
controversial.
are you saying you're
Colin,
from
can I
Australia
bring
because
you
you
in
want me to
here?
you
Because
want to
you wrote an
learn, you want to
extremely
see
good
what I
article,
know about Australia? Is that
about
why you
Thomas
said that you
Sowell,
are
The
from Australia?
Nonconformists. And in that article,
Live here?
you
Where's
have
here? Can you tell me what
something that
here?
Thomas
You
Sowell
live
said on
here.
Bill Buckley's
So are you
final
alive?
speech.
Like you're talking to
Quoted.
me and you're active
And
and
this
you
is
have
really
interest in what
a
you're
conversation
saying
they're
to
having
me
about this trilogy of books that Victor was talking about. Quote,
on
I
this
haven't been able to find a single
live
country
video
in the
broadcast
world
that I'm
where
reading?
the policies that are being advocated
What do
for
I
blacks
know
in the
about
United States have
Australia?
lifted any people out
Maybe
of
I want to
poverty.
travel there
This stuck
someday
with me because it's sort of the
because
underlying point of the
of
three
maybe the
books,
air.
that they
Maybe I
are
can
an
breathe
attempt
in
to set
some
the problem
and
of
it can
race
get
and
into
inequality
my
in a
body.
global perspective over not just centuries but
Maybe I
millennia.
can
And
learn
it's an
about
astonishing
kangaroos.
achievement. Where did you encounter those books first? Because it's not like
I
they're
don't know
assigned
much about
in many
Australia.
undergraduate
I don't know about
courses. They
Australia's
certainly were not assigned
economy.
at Harvard
I don't know
University.
about
My father went
agriculture
to Howard
or
University and
how
was in the economics
agronomy
club
is
with
over
none other
there.
than Kamala Harris. And in their yearbook
I
photo,
don't
you can see a picture of
know.
my father,
Why you
Graham
ask me what
Hughes,
I know
next to
about
Kamala
Australia?
Harris as 22-year-olds in the Howard Economics Club that had like 8 members total. My father did his undergrad economics thesis on Thomas Sowell's work. So
What?
when I was 19 years old or so and curious and needing things to read, I just went to my dad's bookshelf. I'd heard the name Thomas Sowell. I knew he was some kind of bad guy that you were not supposed to agree with. And I read a book that I think is called The Economics and Politics of Race. It's like kind of a more Sowell book. And title's been changed or something like that. But similar to what Justice Thomas was saying earlier, I realized many of the points he was making were questions that had been raised in my head in a kind of, incomplete form. And I had a similar experience of drinking water, like, an oasis in the desert. And from then on, I just figured I'm going to read everything this guy has written, so I did. And so I bought the Culture Trilogy on Amazon. And now,
Is that it? You
the
asked me
bit
what I
you picked
know,
out there, that
and now
is the
what?
crux. That's the crux of Thomas Sowell on race.
What's
in
the
a nutshell.
reason?
Whereas most American
Is
intellectuals and
that?
writers have
I
thought
just.
about
What
the
do I
racial
know? I don't know
inequality issue
Australia.
from a standpoint
What
of,
do I
let's
know
do a
about?
bunch of
Okay,
research
let me see.
about America and
What
make a whole bunch of
do
assumptions.
you know
Thomas
about
Sowell comes at it completely different.
Australia?
He
Is
says, I'm going to posit that Americans are human
I
beings,
can say
and that
just
we have
because
something to
of
learn from the
what I
entire
believe,
history
I
of the
believe
rest of the
that
world as well. That we're
Australia
not like
is
Athena sprung from the head of Zeus, but that
not so
somehow
much a
the principles
geographical
of
location
social and
as
economic
much as it
causality that
is
obtain on the
like
other four corners of the earth might have something to inform us. So he says, well, we think of affirmative action as an American thing. Well, hold on. India's had affirmative action policies longer than we have. China's had affirmative policies. Why don't we look at what happened there? Okay, we think of slavery as an American thing. Well, hold on. The whole rest of the world has had slavery. So let's look in every permutation of white, black, Asian, and and every other race. So let's see if the kind of things we're advocating here as a solution to racial inequality has been tried elsewhere. And lo and behold, what he finds is the exact opposite, where you can find dozens and dozens of examples of ethnic groups starting out with nothing and rising to the top
Australia.
by adopting certain cultural attitudes. You can't find a single one that obeys the implicit theory of progressives in America, namely that what you got to do
I don't
is
know
lower
much about
standards
being
and get
black
handouts.
to
It's an
go to,
incredibly
I don't know.
deep
I don't know
insight.
anything
I
about
don't think
everything
there's
I
any
can
really
say is
good
I would
response to
like
it
to
from the
know.
left, frankly.
I was
Or
blown
I
away
could
by
possibly
these
have an
books, and I
idea.
confess I had not read
That
them
will be more or less
until
quite the
I was given
assumption.
the assignment of writing a paper
Australia.
for this conference.
From
And
Australia.
if you're in the same position as I was in, you haven't read them, I have a treat.
Sorry I
in store
asked
for
about
you.
what
I have
else
to
you
confess,
doing.
the scope of these books made me initially skeptical. I thought, this is wildly overambitious. Who could possibly do this? I'm going to check him out because there's a bunch of stuff in here about Scotland and the Scots. And I wonder, I bet he doesn't get that right. He gets it so right. I learned things that I did not know about my own people. And of course, as Victor alluded to, I mean, the Scots were at one time kind of where Afghanistan is today, like the most crazy, barbaric, uncivilized, violent place in the world, the place the Romans couldn't conquer. They tried. There's this great Antonine wall that they built, which the Scots dismantled, destroyed entirely. And the Romans were like, these people cannot be civilized. We're out of here. So I read these extraordinary books, and I'm learning immediately about something I thought I knew about. Victor, did you have the same feeling that he finds out things about the things you know in, say,
I didn't
history,
plan to do
the
this
ancient
actually,
history, in the
but it is
trilogy?
very
I'm particularly
informative
interested in
actually
the
to
interplay of
understand how I am
culture
and how my
and
body
geography,
is.
which is another key part of the trilogy. He's almost like a kind of 18th century Enlightenment thinker in his ambition, his readiness to bring together all the different facets of human society. How does he perform as an ancient historian?
Very well. I was curious about that question because I had written a lot about geography in the ancient world, but he wasn't a geographical determinist like Jared Diamond. He didn't say, if you have favorable geography. What he basically said is geography matters, culture matters, human capital.
I would like
and
to
geography
figure out
did
ways
matter. So
to
when he discussed the
somehow
Mediterranean,
circulate
obviously,
things
as Plato said,
to
if you were a
continue
frog around this
to
pond, then you had a straight shot between Africa,
proteins
Asia,
and
and
bacteria I
Europe.
can build in my
Countries had
body.
advantages by that proximity, and people that were further away, mostly white-skinned Scots and Thracians, they were not going to be as advanced. That was one factor. I learned it when I got to Hoover in 2003. I got a call from him. I'd read a lot, but I didn't know. I'd been told he was acerbic. And he said, I'd like to have lunch with you. And I said, really? And he said, you know, I don't know if we'll have lunch a second time, but. So we went to lunch, and we went to El Forneo, and he said, I wrote a book, you wrote a book, Carnage and Culture. I wrote a book, Conquest and Culture. I don't know anything about farming. I said, I don't know anything about photography. And he said, do you believe in the values of drinking 12 ounces of milk at lunch? I said, yes, I do. And we hit it off. We did that until 2019, for 16 years. Sometimes we were treated by Shelby Steele joining us, and they were very close friends. But what I got out of those conversations over that year period, he had a certain tragic view of life. And by that I mean, his view was that people are all smart, we're endowed with a God-given empiricism, and we know what the truth is if we're disciplined enough. We can look at examples we inherited from the Greeks, the inductive method. We can look at examples, we can come logically to a common understanding of how the world works. But we don't get there because people are ideological, but more importantly, human nature being what it is, people gravitate to the common opinion, or what they think is orthodoxy, or what, if they say no is not true and they're going to be rewarded for it, they will champion that. Therefore, there are going to be certain people, and he's not a contrarian, he doesn't just say whatever the majority is I'm against, but he says if people are purely empirical and they go by the evidence, the chances are more than not that they're not going to be happy or liked, because people are going to resent that because they're not going toward where the orthodox and comfortable place is. And then you have to do that. And if you do that, you have to accept that people are not going to find you affable, they're going to say that you're unfriendly, and that is something that you should strive to do, if it's at the price of being independent thinking and follow the evidence wherever it goes.
So tomorrow, in one of the other papers, I'll be talking about the paradox of the public intellectual as an intensely private person,
Yeah.
and why it is that we hardly ever see Thomas Sowell in these buildings. I've had just one meeting with him, and all the time that I've been here, which means I must have failed the audition quite badly. Coleman, can I turn to another part of Thomas Sowell's
Tyrell!
the work in conflict of visions? I see that as an extraordinarily bold intervention.
Tyrell!
There are really two ways of thinking about the world. And I'll give another quote here.
Tyrell!
While believers in the unconstrained
Tyrell!
seek the special causes of war, poverty,
Morris!
believers in the constrained vision,
Tyrell Edward Morris!
peace, wealth,
Tyrell!
society. Help us understand that distinction.
Tyrell, are you there?
Categorizes thinkers. What are these two
Tyrell!
Which one?
Yes.
Tyrell!
On the denial of human nature, and the thinker renamed
Tyrell!
visions here the tragic vision, and Victor, you just mentioned
Tyrell!
more of the tragic vision than the utopian. So the utopian vision,
Tyrell!
you come into the world, most people are kind, most people are decent.
Tyrell!
So when things go wrong, when people start slaughtering each other, or when they start raiding Walmarts and stealing televisions, the big question you have to ask is, what has been done
Tyrell!
and behave in such a strange and abnormal way? If you hear that someone has committed a crime, someone has robbed a liquor store, you want to go into that person's background, figure out what
Tyrell!
this person as a child.
Oh!
The opposite. It says essentially most human beings, even decent ones, are all self-interested. Most people don't spontaneously donate 100% of
Tyrell!
what they need to survive. In fact, most people try to conserve their resources as much as possible, spend it largely on their family, their kin.
Tyrell!
Of human nature. And so people in the tragic vision try to create societies that allow for human self-interest.
Tyrell!
Pro-social outcomes, like market capitalism. Market capitalism allows you to express your natural self-interest to become as wealthy as possible, but it creates a set of rules of the game so that the way you have to do that is by creating a
Tyrell!
will exchange money for. This way, everyone can be self-interested, because the net result is that everything gets more efficient, food becomes cheaper, healthier, we get technology, we get innovation.
Tyrell!
Vision, on the other hand, is something like says, basically, we can create a world where we treat all of our fellow strangers kind of.
Tyrell!
A family is essentially a small communist unit, right?
Tyrell!
But that's not going to affect how much you eat.
Tyrell!
Each according to their need. And like,
Tyrell!
My family is total communism when it comes to
Tyrell!
all cables.
Tyrell!
Devices are common property.
yeah, exactly. I don't know if anybody else has done
Tyrell!
Communism of all cables.
Tyrell!
digital communism, yeah. So anyway, the long story short, the vision imagines, because it's a nice idea, because it makes
Tyrell!
the world could be so, that therefore the world is so. All we have to do is educate people in the right way, and we'll all stop being more self-interested. We'll all be one big happy family, and of course,
Tyrell, are you there?
testifies to the fact that this does not work. So, ironically, it's the utopian that Sowell argues that leads to tragedy, and the tragedy
Are you there, Tyrell?
the best result we can actually hope for.
And so in a way, it's kind of Rousseau.
Tyrell, are you there? Are you there?
And I guess it's Adam Smith and Burke all the way to Hayek, who are really the
Are you there?
in a way the great problem of Thomas Sowell's lifetime is that the utopian,
Tyrell!
and particularly in the realm of the people we call public intellectuals.
Yeah, and let me say one more thing.
Tyrell!
Divisions. I also identified more with the tragic.
Tyrell!
A moment like 2020 where you see, young people rioting and running into stores and,
Tyrell!
And I thought to my own,
Tyrell!
experience, like what would explain that kind of behavior? And to me, it just
Tyrell, are you there?
they will, right? If there's social purposes, they will, because it's fun. And there was this over-intellectualizing sense of what must have happened to get people to do this. I'm like,
Tyrell!
what it was like to be a teenager. You just wanted to destroy stuff because it was fun to do, right? So it's not that.
Please, Tyrell, are you there?
The fact that people sit down for 6 hours at a time and behave and don't hit each other.
So can we talk a bit about black rednecks and white liberals?
Hi, Tyrell!
The most extraordinary of Thomas Sowell's many books, not least because of the argument that it makes about African American culture. I don't know which of you wants to talk about it. Coleman, you discussed this in your essay for this.
Tyrell, do you want to talk to me?
The argument that Sowell makes, the cultural patterns that emerged from the economy of slavery in the American South, is not as we tend to think of it, but actually has its roots in
What do you want to drink, Tyrell?
slave owners, plantation owners, and the slave traders. Talk a bit about that, and then maybe I'll come back to Victor, because it's
Tyrell!
being conquered by the wrong sort of people. But Coleman first.
Sure, yeah. So Sowell starts out by making this observation that in America, we're obsessed with talking about disparities between black and white and Hispanic and Asian.
Tyrell, you want some coffee? What you want? Tyrell, what do you want? Hey, you have oranges and apples there. Can you eat some of your fruit? Tyrell! 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 What do you want to drink?
No.
You want something to drink?
No.
Water?
Mm.
Okay, no, not now. Okay, because I didn't give you anything to drink. You said yes earlier. How are you breathing? Scream, Tyrell. Let me hear you scream. Scream, say, ah! Scream loud, Tyrell. Let me hear you scream. Tyrell! 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 Scream, Tyrell.
I asked him about that. I think he characterized it. It was a lose-lose book as far as the reception because he was basically saying there's a quality of the South community that comes from a quality of the West community, and they're both
Australia. I don't know what Australia is. What do you know about Australia?